All external images returned 404 in production. The culprit: a single typo in images remote patterns. In Next.js 14 and earlier, images remote patterns hostname supported only exact domains or example.com single asterisk for one-level wildcards. The asterisk double asterisk syntax for multi-level subdomain matching was introduced in Next.js 15. If your project uses an older version, example.com will not work and may cause all external images to fail. Always check your Next.js version's documentation for the correct wildcard syntax. To prevent production incidents, add a CI script that validates every domain in your content's image URLs is covered by a remotePatterns entry. This script parses your config and checks against a whitelist of expected domains, failing the build if any domain is missing. Enabling images remote patterns for many external domains can significantly increase image optimization costs on platforms like Vercel, where each optimized image request incurs a compute charge. For high-traffic sites, consider using a dedicated image content delivery network, e.g., Cloudinary, Imgix, and setting Images Loader to an external service to offload optimization costs. Let's break down next.config.ts deep dive. All configuration options explained, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. Next.config.ts is the configuration file that tells Next.js how to behave. It's evaluated at build time, so it has access to environment variables, but changes after the build starts won't reflect. The file must export a valid next.config object, and TypeScript users get autocomplete with import type next.config from Next. The images config block is the most frequently misconfigured option in production. The remote patterns array defines which external image hosts are allowed for optimization. Each entry requires both protocol and hostname. Missing either causes every external image to return a 404 with no build warning. Here's a production-ready images config. Notice each remote patterns entry has both protocol and hostname. The double asterisk 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 matches any number of subdomain levels. Also note the formats, device sizes, and cache TTL settings that control optimization behavior. Redirects, rewrites, and headers must be defined as async functions that return an array, not static objects. A common mistake is using a plain array, which breaks silently in production. Also, 301 redirects are cached by browsers indefinitely, so use 307 during transition periods. Notice the async function syntax. The source uses Next.js root patterns like slug and path. The destination uses the same parameter names. The has condition allows conditional redirects based on cookies, headers, or query params. TranspilePackages is a simpler alternative to custom Webpack config for transpiling external packages that aren't ESM compatible. The Webpack config function is considered an internal API. It changes between major versions without warning, so minimize custom Webpack config. Here's a Webpack config with an SVG loader, module alias, and bundle analysis. Note the server components external packages array for packages that need special handling in server components. But remember, this config is fragile across Next.js versions. The output option determines how Next.js builds your app. The default builds for a Node.js server with all features. Output: standalone creates a self-contained deployment for Docker. Output: export generates static HTML but disables all server features like API routes, ISR, and middleware. Choose wisely. If you think you might need any server-side feature in the future, don't start with static export. Migrating is costly. ServerActions in Next.js 16 include an origin check. If your app is accessed from multiple domains, you must list all allowed origins in serverActions allowedOrigins. Missing origins cause 403 forbidden errors. Use environment variables to dynamically build the allowed origins list. Note the filter, Boolean, to remove undefined values. Also, body size limit can be increased for file uploads. The experimental config block contains features that are not yet stable. Using them gives you cutting-edge capabilities, but risks API changes and bugs. Always pin your Next.js JS version and document why each flag is enabled. Here are some key experimental features. MDX-RS for faster MDX compilation, React compiler for automatic memoization, PPR for partial pre-rendering, and optimize package imports for tree-shaking barrel files. The React compiler automatically adds memoization calls at build time. It eliminates most manual useMemo and useCallback code with zero runtime cost. Build time increases about 5%, but the output is identical to handcrafted memoization. Enable React compiler with compilation mode. All to compile all components. Use strict to surface warnings about patterns the compiler can't safely optimize. Turbopack is the default development bundler, offering 10x faster cold starts and instant HMR. However, it doesn't support custom Webpack loaders. For production, Webpack is still recommended for complex apps. The Turbo config block allows resolve aliases and load rules, but keep it minimal. The defaults work for most projects. Environment variables without the next public prefix are server-only. Those with the prefix are inlined at build time and available in the browser. The env config option also inlines values into the client bundle, never put secrets there. Use env for values safe to expose. Server-only vars like database URL are never inlined into client code. Next public ID is available in the browser. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. The team wrote hostname, example com, and omitted the protocol field. In development, images appear because Next.js uses unoptimized images. But in production, next.image enforces remotePatterns and rejected every request. The remotePatterns entry omitted the required protocol field and used a single asterisk wildcard instead of double asterisks, causing every external image to silently return 404 in production. The fix corrected remotePatterns to include protocol, HTTPS, and hostname.example.com. Also added a CI check that validates remotePatterns against expected domains and a playwright test that asserts images have non-zero natural width. This is the exact configuration that caused the 6-hour outage. The protocol field is missing, and the wildcard uses single asterisk instead of double asterisk asterisk asterisk. Always include protocol and use asterisk for multi-level subdomain matching. If you omit the protocol field Next.js doesn't match any protocol, so no remote images are optimized. Always include both protocol and hostname. If you prefix a secret with next public, it gets inlined into the client-side JavaScript bundle. Anyone can view it via view source. Never put secrets in next public variables. If you define redirects as a static array instead of an async function, Next.js ignores it silently. Always use async redirects. Return. If you deploy to a staging subdomain and it's not in allowedOrigins, all server action calls from staging will fail with 403. Always include all domains that will call serverActions. Use these commands to diagnose configuration issues. For images, check the remotePatterns block and test with curl. For redirects, verify they are functions. For serverActions, ensure all origins are listed. Let's run through some common interview questions. External images 404 in production but work in dev? Check remotePatterns, protocol and hostname wildcard syntax. Compare output, export, standalone default, export, static, no server features. Standalone, self-contained Docker. Default, full node, JS server. Server action returns 403 in production. Check serverActions allowedOrigins includes all domains. And a few frequently asked questions. Why do images work in dev but not production? Dev uses unoptimized images, production uses next.image which validates remotePatterns. Can I use wildcards in serverActions allowedOrigins? No, wildcards are not supported. List each origin explicitly. Does React compiler affect runtime performance? No, it only adds memoization at build time. Runtime is identical. Let's recap the key takeaways. remotePatterns requires protocol and hostname. Wildcard, not for multi-level subdomains. Redirects, rewrites, headers must be async functions. serverActions allowedOrigins prevents 403. Ready to go deeper? Up next, Pages Router to App Router Migration, Step-by-Step Guide, then Next.js Project Structure, Folder Organization Best Practices, then Next.js with Drizzle ORM, Database Integration Guide, and Next.js with Shadkins/UI, Component Library Quick Start. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.